Welcome to AskBYS Podcast, a monthly podcast brought to you by Bainbridge Youth Services. AskBYS Podcast connects parents to professionals that can provide support, education, and resources on a particular topic in parenting. My name is Shannon Ameling, and I am your host. I am here with Milagro Castilleja as our producer. We are recording live at the Media Arts Studio at BARN, the Bainbridge Artisan Resource Network. Today, we are happy to welcome our parent guest, Sarah, a Bainbridge Island resident and mother of 3.
Hi.
And our professional guest, Shayla Haller, licensed counselor and high-performance coach.
Hello.
Today's episode is Parenting and Athletics, a conversation with a licensed counselor and high-performance coach.
Thanks, Shannon. Hi, Shayla. I'm super excited to have this conversation.
Same.
Bainbridge is very active in sports and from all ages, so I think this is an incredibly important topic, and I'm thrilled that BYS thinks so too. So my first question is pretty general, but what can we as parents do to support our kids throughout their sports careers if we figure they start playing t-ball at 4 and up through kind of high school and even into college?
I think the best thing that as parents and the roles that parents can play with their children is, first of all, making sure that they're having fun. And, you know, some people might laugh at that, but it really is an integral piece to positive psychology and what positive psychology tells us and how our environment does play a significant role in our success. And so, first of all, you know, if your family is deciding to start putting your kids in sports at a young age, we need to also keep in mind how we are shaping them and molding them for success. And that might look different from family to family, and that's okay, because there's a lot of different parenting styles. However, I do think it is very important to understand that there is a threshold that our children have. And if we're starting them at a young age because we want to start them at a young age, we cannot expect them to enjoy what they're doing if we are the ones who signed them up for it and they did not have a say.
Yeah.
And that begins at, honestly, you know, that begins at a very young age. One would argue birth, but it does. It matters, and our children's voice matters in this process. And so I think that is a very important first thing to keep into consideration is my kid having fun? And then to kind of go from there and see, you know, and then also too, all of our kids are different individual people.
Right.
And, you know, our oldest versus the middle versus the youngest, or if there's an only child, you know, each kid is different, and it's important to watch them, and you'll be able to learn a lot about your child throughout that process too.
And I'm assuming, just thinking of the difference between a 4-year-old and a, you know, sophomore, that definition of fun changes.
Oh, 100%.
And how might that look different to, you know, an elementary school kid versus, you know, someone who's getting a little bit more serious?
Great question. I think for an elementary age school kid, they're excited looking at the calendar that they have practice coming up or they have a game coming up. And they're excited to get their uniform. They're excited to put on their uniform. They're excited to go, you know, shopping for their cleats. You know, they're excited, and they're being made a part of the process. So for the younger ages, that is important. Is there excitement there? And if the answer is no, then that's definitely something that you can't really expect your kid to enjoy what they're about to go do. However, you know, there are children who do need a little bit more encouragement. And so I do think having those conversations, those open conversations with our elementary age kids about, hey, you know what, I understand that maybe you're nervous about this. However, you know, what is something that we could learn from this? You know, maybe you could meet some new friends, you know, you can get out of the house and you can burn off some energy. And so you can still, you know, encourage children who are maybe struggling with the idea of, I don't really want to do this. This is something new, and have a conversation about, you know what, I tried something new this one time, and I actually didn't want to do it either, you know, but mom was able to push through, and she actually ended up really loving it. And so sharing those experiences to help the kid understand, these emotions and feelings are normal and they're healthy, and this is life and how do we get through that? And then you've got the kids who are super excited about it. And so making them a part of the process, you'll be able to see. So that's the younger age. And then as we get older, life gets harder. Okay. There's drama, there's things that go on in school, there's hormones, there's all those different things that are going on that kick in around 11, 12 years old, depending on the child. And so it's going to look a lot different as far as what fun looks like. For me, I was a very focused athlete, very focused student athlete. And so it looked different. It didn't look like I was having fun.
Yeah.
But for me, because I was so focused and competitive to where I would go to training and I showed that I was having fun through performing 100% of my best effort. And so that's how parents can watch and see the body language, if a child makes a mental lapse, because we all make mistakes, right? I don't really like calling them mistakes. I call them a mental lapse because a youth or individual does know right from wrong, and they do know they're supposed to, get on base and, knock it out. And so it's a mental lapse at times. And so I think as we get older, the older individuals who are more into, moving towards 8th grade and into high school, fun looks different. I think the most important thing is, hey, you can just ask them, right? Hey, are you having fun? Is this fun for you? Because as I'm watching you, I'm just not sure. Are you enjoying this? And then you can just ask that simple question. They'll be able to, I actually don't know. I don't know if I'm okay, well, then let's think about some ways of how we can have fun. And then that's where goal setting comes in.
I love that. And let's get back to goal setting because that's interesting. So along those lines, you might have the kid who there might be a Thursday where he's had a long week and he is kicking his feet and does not want to go to practice. When do you know that that's kind of a one-off and, more about what's going on in his life versus the actual sport? Or when do you along those lines, or what are some of those signs of potential burnout or potential, no longer being fun?
Okay. So I can give a personal experience for this. I'm an identical twin sister, and she experienced burnout a lot sooner than I did. I had the opportunity to play professional, and I chose not to after college. And I played Division I at Cal State Fullerton. I was a goalkeeper for soccer. And my identical twin sister was also a goalkeeper. So, yeah, that was fun, right? Talk about competition. And it fueled us. However, it did come for me as a certain age to where the gap started to get bigger. And for my sister, the burnout started to happen, and I think because that gap got bigger. And she was showing up to training and not really understanding her role. And it was hard for her to understand her role. And that is the most important thing, integral part of a coach and the team culture is each individual player understands their role on the team. And if they do not, then there's going to be problems. And so for my sister, she experienced the burnout sooner. And I'll never forget when she was experiencing injuries towards college. And my mom told her, Jenna, you can quit, right? And she stood there. She was like, I can?
Mind blown.
Yeah. And so that, we're talking about a college age female who is in her, 19 years old, 20 years old. And this was, I'm in my mid 30s. So imagine what the culture is like now, just go. And so to answer your question, talk to the child if it's, or the adolescent. If it's a couple of times, it could just be a season of difficulty. Maybe math class is really hard. Maybe the friend group is struggling at school. Check in with your kid constantly. That is the best thing a parent can do. It's about relationship. Okay. Our role as parents is to develop a relationship with our children. And when we start to notice, because as parents, we know our kids, but do we really? When we start to notice our children maybe pulling away, maybe it's because there's too many things going on. There are too many sports going on, too many extracurricular activities. For me as a licensed counselor, I can't tell you how many youth I see in my office with anxiety and depression. And when I ask how many things they have going on, the list is extensive. And here's the separation or the divide. Some children thrive with that. That's amazing. That's great. Some children do not. And that is also okay. So each child is different. And so talk to your children, talk to your adolescents, and check in with them. And if you start to notice a trend to where they are continuing to check out, and we're talking maybe over a course of a month or two, and they just can't seem to get out of it, then maybe it is time to pursue maybe some counseling. If as a parent, you're not able to really get through to them, because that is a really awkward age. I mean, let's remember when we were 12, 13, okay? We were awkward, right? And so it is an uncomfortable, awkward age. And so maybe they do need to go speak to someone who's a third party, to where they feel safe, and to where, you know, mom and dad or a caregiver is not in that room with them. Okay, they're wanting autonomy, and that is the age to where you can give them autonomy. And so, like I said, talk to them, find out what's been going on. If Tyler, you know, if you're not open to talking to mom or dad, would you be open to talking to aunt, or would you be open to talking to uncle? And if not, would you like to go talk to someone else who maybe can help you and figure out what's going on? Because do you love your sport? Well, yes, I do. Okay, well then let's see who we can get you the help that you need.
Right.
Yeah.
So what role is kind of the intertwining of, I'm using quotes here, of loving when it's a parent maybe who loves it, or you know, is the coach, or who is really into it, right? And the kid did love it, or might still love it, but also if it's very entwined with their relationship with their parent, right? So I think there's some expectations from parents, especially if the athlete is good, or they were good. Kind of how does that play a role in that enjoyment? And I'm assuming that it's kind of harder to then identify if the parent is highly involved.
Yes, and let's be honest here, our children and our youth and our adolescents aren't the problem here. It's the parents, okay? And I'm a parent of 4 boys, ranging from 13 to 10 months. So, you know, our role as parents is to essentially sit back and to watch our children grow and develop. And our role as parents is to have a healthy relationship with them. Parents who are living vicariously through their children is what is going to cause the child to experience burnout sooner, because it is not their goals that they're wanting to obtain, it's the parents. And when we as parents put our needs ahead of our children's needs, and we put them on the travel team, and we think this is what's best for them, my first question is, yes, as parents, we do most of the time know what's best for our children. However, have you asked the child? And include the child in the conversation, because even if they're really, really, really good, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's something that fulfills them. So that's why it's so important to also take a step back. And if you are a coach and you do have children, you are modeling. And, you know, I think for me as a coach, and I'm no longer, you know, a sports coach or doing private trainings. And so for me, it was very important to understand that my role within this child and this family's life was so integral to their success, because I am modeling my behaviors, and they're always watching, and they're listening. And, you know, over, 65% of communication is body language and tone. I'm sorry, it's tone, not body language. That's second. And so our tone, that's the other thing too, is a lot of children, oh, well, he or she, they're yelling at me. Are they yelling at you, or are they just coaching you? Is their tone loud in order for you to hear them yelling from across, you know, across the field? Because that is something to consider, versus a coach who is demeaning, who is overly intense, depending on the age group, and who is just flat out rude. And that is obviously in our culture now, it seems to be that there's more coaches like that than coaches of, hey, you know, we did our best. You gave 100% of your best effort. Way to go. I'm proud of you. Yeah.
So switching gears a little bit to that, if there's a situation where, you know, it might be a coach, it might be another parent, it might be another kid on the team, that can feel a little bit intense or kind of over the top. How can parents kind of approach that? I think there's a lot of dynamic between, at least for me personally, like I want my kids to look up to other adults and respect their, you know, decisions and not necessarily step in all the time, because that's, you know, obviously they need to grow up to be great adults.
Yes.
But I think there are some circumstances and situations where that might not always be the case. So what's that line between letting the coaches coach and also, you know, being the advocate for your own child?
I feel like there's really no black or white, as much as I want to say that there is, because I've had my fair share of coaches through my playing experience who were ruthless, absolutely ruthless, and it pushed me and made me better. But however, I was extremely motivated and I thrived in that environment. However, I'm also not a licensed counselor because my childhood was cush. I have trauma, I have anxiety, I've had bouts of depression, and my mental health as a child was, I was struggling. I wasn't thriving. And so for me, sports gave me this outlet for my anger and for my frustration, and I was good at it to the point where at 13, my team, we were on a Frosted Flakes cereal box.
That's amazing.
And that's where, as far as my, my background, coming from that, and my team winning, being the number one in the nation, and coaches being intense. However, as a parent now, I think you can look at the team culture. Is one or two kids, a couple kids, 10%, 15% falling behind, then maybe your kid's one of them, then maybe that's not the team for your kid. If half of the team or more is struggling because of the coach's style, then I think that's an appropriate time, as maybe collectively as parents, to have a conversation. But if it's a small amount, because I will tell you, there were always 2 or 3 girls on our program, on our team, that always tried, and it just wasn't for them. And it was just too intense. And that's okay. It just wasn't the right team for them. However, the group of us from when I was 14 up until 19, like 85 to 90% of our team from 14 stayed. And the other ones who tried to come and try out for the team and who made the team, some of them, maybe 1 out of 3, ended up staying because it was just an intense environment. And so I think let's look at the team and let's look at the other parents. And if the other parents are having problems with it, then I do think it's an appropriate conversation to, I think we need to bring this to the coach and figure out, here's the other thing too, coaches are human. And for me as a coach, I made it a personal mission that I would not bring my own personal issues from life into coaching, because I experienced that as an athlete, what it was like for my coach to bring their own personal issues. And so as coaches too, coaches are human, and maybe the coach just needs to have some enlightenment for a parent in a very nice way to approach the coach. I suggest not doing it before practice. I also suggest not doing it after. I suggest setting up a time outside of training, or even just a quick phone call. Hey, I just wanted to check in. I've noticed that your intensity has changed a little bit. I just, as a parent, I just want to see and just be able to hold space with you and see if everything's okay, because it does matter to me who my child is around. And it's very important to me, the environment my child is in. And I love seeing my child compete. However, I've noticed that you've been a little bit more demeaning, and the words that you've been using is not okay in my household. And so is that okay in yours? Or, and you just give the coach the opportunity. And if the coach is not willing to answer that question, I think then it's time for the family to have a conversation that maybe this isn't the coach for us. And I think that's okay to do as they're younger. I also think it's important that you're modeling for your child. And when life does get difficult, we need to push through, I'd say majority of the time, okay? And so I don't think life's getting easier. I think with the struggles we're having, the divide that we're just having in community, it's important to push through things. And so, I could go on about this conversation, but it's important to have a balance, and it's important to consider those things.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And I think the other part of that question was just, I think that there can also be, whether it's parents on the sidelines, whether it's, the opposing team. Do you just have some best practices for
let's talk about parents on the sidelines.
Yeah, or just, some best practices for both, at games, like how you talk to your kids both during the game, after the game. I think with parents who have, a lot of experience or thoughts, then those conversations happen naturally. But what, from your perspective, is the right kind of role for the parent?
Okay. I'll share my personal experience first. My mom was a single parent, and she stayed out of it. And I swear that was the most helpful thing for me, because it was already so difficult competing in general. And, kids get tired too. And the late nights with schoolwork and traveling and being in the car and all of those things, they play a role. And so for my mom, she sat to the side. And, you always have those parents who come to a program bringing a little extra stuff, okay? Whether it's previous experiences from their own youth experiences or previous teams that their child was on and things that they swore they would never do again, okay? So we take us wherever we go. And we are responsible and accountable for our actions and behavior. And I, am tired of, and I'm frustrated and upset of how many parents cause problems on the sideline and don't think it's an issue. And, yelling at the referee, come on, like the ref is a ref because they enjoy it, right? A teacher is a teacher because they enjoy it. I'm a therapist because I enjoy it. So I think we need to look at people and think, they're doing the best that they can. We are all doing the best that we can. And I think that's the first thing is humility. And then moving off of that and respect. And I think there's so many parents who do not respect the process and who do not respect themselves enough to take a step back and to maybe just keep their thoughts to themselves and let their kids play. And I mean, what would that look like if we had that environment to where it was a positive psychology environment, to where we thrive and we flourish when we are around positivity? And I will bring in a study. It is proven, as far as positive psychology goes, that people who are optimistic live 6 to 8 years longer than people who are pessimistic. And I'm not saying that the parents who are arguing on the sidelines or providing feedback are pessimistic. I'm merely stating that the environment we surround ourselves with and the 5 people we surround ourselves with as adults matters. And as youth on the sideline, as parents on the sideline, do we really think that by yelling at the ref or creating intense situations and intense environments is going to want to encourage our children to keep playing, even if they're good? No. And I know that from personal experience of the girls on my team who ended up going to play in college and quit their first year, and all of their parents on the sidelines were the intense ones. Hey, I'm just one person and just one study, but I do think that is important to consider. And I'm sure parents are going to be listening to this thinking like, oh, well, you don't understand. And, the situation, or my child was getting injured by the other child. I am not, those cases are different. Those are unique. Okay. Those are unique situations. And I think the best thing we can do is we can model being able to handle our emotions and being able to stay calm, because that is what our kid needs. So if our kid is getting laid out by another member on the opposite team, that still does not give us permission to chew the ref out or to get upset at the coach because they're not advocating for their child, okay? We want to nurture our children and also have them understand that we cannot control other people. And if someone decides to come in hard to a tackle, or someone decides to have poor sportsmanship, it is our job as parents to equip them how to handle that situation, while also making sure we stay calm, because that's what our kids need is someone who's calm. A toddler does not need a parent who is also feeding off their toddler's tantrum. A toddler needs a parent who's, I am safe, whether you're happy or you're upset. I still love you regardless.
So what, in terms of, say either your kid had a great game, had a really rough game, what is the best thing a parent can do on the car ride home?
Don't ask them about the game. If they need space, give them space. What you can say is, you know what, regardless if they won or lost, you guys, it's not about winning and losing. And I swear, 10 years ago, I thought I would never say that. I hate losing more than I love winning. And for me now, with my experience and taking a step back and having kids of my own, it is more about, you know what, did you give your best effort out there today? Do you feel like you gave your best effort? And this is such a powerful question, because don't we as parents want our children to grow up, to be able to leave the house to where we feel confident knowing this is super uncomfortable. I don't like this. However, I know that I did everything I possibly could to equip my child for life. And this is a very important skill that I think we don't even realize is a skill as parents, is that we want our children to be able to critically think for themselves. And if they get in the car, and as soon as they get in the car, we as parents, kind of lay into them like, hey, what the heck? Like, you played so much better last game. Really? Is that going to be very helpful? Absolutely not. The kid already knows, chances are the kid already knows that they didn't play as well as they could have. So let's take a different approach. You know what? Did you give 100% of your best effort out there? And this question is so powerful because it's not putting it on us as a parent. It's putting it on the youth. And for them to critically think to themselves and ask themselves, no, I feel like I only gave 70%. Okay, I think that's accurate. I think I saw you giving 70%. Let's talk more about that. Why do you think you gave 70%? Did it start with nighttime? Did you sleep well? Did you eat a good breakfast? What were you thinking about while you were out there? Were you distracted? And so that is a great question of how to frame it, regardless if you won or lost, because there are so many games that I competed in that I won that my team should not have won. And there are so many games that I played in where we lost and we should have won. So how can we compare or think, oh, well, my kid's team won, so they must have done better? That is not true all the time.
Right.
And so it's not based on winning and losing. It's based on effort. And because there are so many times where I gave 100% of my best effort and we still lost. But I gave my best effort. What more could we ask for as parents?
Right.
That's what it's about.
Yeah.
And so that's the question.
And I love that. I love turning it on them, right?
Yes, put it
for
on
them to
them.
internalize.
And there's never too young. I mean, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, I've done camps. I put on my own sports camps. And I started at 6. And I asked these questions. What does your strong voice say? And what does your negative voice say? And these 6-year-olds impressed me so much that they knew exactly what their strong and weak were. But we as parents don't give them the opportunity because we're so busy parenting them and having them, answer the things the way that we expect them to answer. Let's ask them. Let's give them that intuition to, what? Whoa, yeah, today was great. Well, why? Why did you play lights out today? What were you thinking about? Or let's think about that so you can use it in both situations.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Switching gears again, kind of talking about as kids get older and start to, things get a little more intense, whether it's club sports or select, is there a time where it makes sense for them to kind of specialize in a sport, kind of focus on that? And then along those same lines, we live on a tiny island, but there's a lot of opportunity outside of whether that's going to Seattle, whether that's, playing in kind of other areas. But what is I'm assuming there's not one right answer, but what are kind of some best practices when your kids get to kind of that more elite level?
So they're contrary to popular belief, and this is multi-sided too. So athletes who can play, who make it to the pro, okay, we're talking 1%. Even the percentage for athletes to play collegiately is so minuscule in the grand scheme of things. I do, according to what we have seen a lot with professional athletes, most professional athletes did not specialize actually in one sport. The athletes who made it to play pro, and a lot of this I'm basing it off of the women's national team. A lot of those athletes on the women's national team were multi-sport athletes. Very successfully multi-sport athletes. I was a multi-sport athlete. I played competitive basketball, won a three-peat in high school. I'm from San Clemente, California, and went to San Clemente High School, and we won 3 years in a row for basketball, state. And then I won my senior year for soccer. Played both soccer and basketball my freshman year. Was running back and forth between sports. I loved it. Again, this is where I'm talking about the separation. You're able to see a separation, right? A difference. I loved running from the soccer field to the basketball court. and grades were 3.8. And so that's also huge, parents, is we've got to consider the grades here. My children do not get to go compete in certain things or have certain extracurricular activities if their grades are not to par, because that's more important than their sport in our household. And so the multi-sport success is actually showing us that you can be competitive in one sport and also be competitive in another. Here's the other side of this. I understand as a parent of 4, where you draw the line. And it is important to draw the line. You know, we can be, you know, just taking our kids from point A to point B and, you know, eating Taco Bell, you know, 3 nights a week. And that is the decision that the family gets to make. And if that dream or that vision is so strong for that adolescent to where they would wake up in the morning and before school starts and go outside and juggle or go outside and train, that right there is a sign that maybe it is time to get off the island and go expand. Because if your child is doing more stuff on their own without being asked, that is the kicker here. Without being asked, that is a sign that they are ready for more and that let's go see what they can do. And then that's the decision the family gets to make. Here's the other thing I've been learning too as a parent. We like to go camping. We like to do fun things. We like to have experiences with our children. And when we are in competitive sports and we are in travel ball, do we get to do that as often? The answer is no.
Right.
You know, most of our travel time is you know, on a plane, or if we're staying within the state, is in a car. And yeah, sure, you can make as much fun as you want with that and make it an experience. But let's be honest, winter sports tournaments, usually over spring break, usually over Memorial Day weekend. They're usually over weekends where it's vacation, where it's a break. And so I think there's a balance too, that if your children are showing that they're able to do multiple things and they're really good at multiple things, I personally feel in my experience and from what I've done in the last 20 years, I believe around 13 to 14 years old, you're really starting to see a shift and a change. And so I think put your kids in as many different things as long as they want to. If they want to try different things, put them in different things. And then if they're really good at a couple things and you as a family are willing to make that sacrifice, because let's be honest, it is. If you're willing to make that sacrifice, because the other kids are being affected too. Okay. So if you're willing to make that sacrifice and put that individual in multiple sports, that's great. If you're not, then that's also fine, and you can have them just specialize. There's really no there's no special answer to this. It really is based on the individual. But like I said, if they are waking up early or they are coming home and they're efficient and they're getting their things done, then yes, I do think it's time to have a conversation and see, can we get our kid on a more competitive team, and then see how the kid does on a more competitive team. Yeah.
And then in terms of specializing, you think depending on the kid and what they like, that the more the merrier?
And the family.
Right.
And the other kids.
Okay.
Because that's important, because we're dragging our other kids with us. Unless, like for me, my husband, he works night shift. So it's me. It is me with 4 children, right? Yes, and I work. And so it is me when I get home from work, we high five each other, he leaves. And I take over the nighttime stuff and practices and extracurricular activities. And so for me, do I think I'm letting my children down if I'm not able to have him play club soccer? Absolutely not. And it's also, I think, part of just that humility as a parent of understanding that sports is not everything. Sports is amazing. Sports is great. However, it is not everything. Our children being able to learn how to have resiliency, they can learn that outside of sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of my other questions, is just if we think about the benefits of sports, and kind of, I think what sometimes gets lost is that bigger picture of what these sports do for kids, why we want them to play to begin with. So I would just love, kind of from your perspective, what are those benefits and how we can kind of keep those in mind and keep that perspective as we kind of live through some of this more intensity, more drama driven aspects that tend to bog us down, I think, sometimes.
I think the number one thing, and what I'm seeing just in society and our community, is people don't know how to work well with other people. Teams can do a great job, as long as the team culture is positive, teams can do a great job of being able to help facilitate that environment for individuals in sport. And so being able to work well with other people is an integral part to contributing to society. And those who do not work well, those who are ball hogs, we always have them, right? Those kids who think that it's all on their shoulders and they need to be the one to do it all, we as parents, it's our job and responsibility. I don't want to say job. It's our responsibility to teach them how to be able to contribute successfully to a team, and what does that look like. And so the language at home matters. And so to answer more in depth to your question, I think that it does. Being able to play successfully on a team is the number one thing. And what does that look like? And being able to show up regardless of how you feel and give 100% of your best effort, realistically is what we do as adults, right, in our careers. We don't get to just call in sick all week because we don't feel like going in, like we get fired.
Right.
And so, right? So the team culture is very important as far as what sports can offer our youth. Being resilient and having grit. Those two things are key components to success and are actually key components to happiness. What is it? Is it Finland, who is one of the most happiest countries, and they don't. It's because of their view on difficult situations, being able to have grit and being able to be resilient. And so that is what culture has shown us. That is what society and studies have shown us, is that grit and being resilient are very important. If your kid is not getting grit and being able to learn how to be resilient from sport, then we need to find something else, or we need to have a different conversation. But that is definitely two huge things that sports offer. I do believe sports also offers us, as an athlete, to learn the areas that we're really good in, to learn our strengths, and then to address our weaknesses, and because we all have them, right? And let's play to our strengths. So I think that's another really awesome thing that sports can help us with, is that as athletes, we are not going to be great at everything. And that's okay. And that's what makes a team so unique. Now, if we're talking about tennis, or we're talking about golf, more individual sports, that's a different conversation. But as far as being in that environment goes, those three things. And then I think also too, balance. I think balance and being flexible. And, as an athlete, you can go into a situation thinking, oh, well, I did my best. Okay, well, that's great. That's really awesome. And do you think there was something else you could have done to maybe help, Victor do his best? Did you notice that your teammate was down? Did you see their head down after they struck out? What could you have done? Right? So it's an ongoing conversation. And for individuals, as soon as people think they hit their max or their peak, that's a slippery slope. It's either time to leave the career or the job because you're not being challenged enough. But the one thing that I do talk about a lot with sports psychology is we all need to learn how to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that is definitely something sports can teach us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just kind of my last question, and I don't know if this is how exactly to phrase this, but I think, Bainbridge as a community has a lot of voices, a lot of, different programs and a lot of resources, which is fantastic. But I think sometimes we can get bogged down by, trying to get fields and, different teams competing for different things. But, what I would like your opinion on is just like how we as, a community and, parents specifically can support kind of youth sports in general, right? So yes, it's obviously specific to our team, but how can we kind of help other families or other, organizations and become, a little bit more positive and welcoming and, I don't know what the right term is, but I mean, just looking at it as sports as a community builder.
I think classes. I think classes in terms of so someone like me, I have two jobs. Okay, so I'm a licensed counselor and therapist, and then I also do high performance coaching. And so what that looks like for me is I can get signed on by club teams, and who I work with is AST, so it's Advanced Sports Technology, and we can include that and stuff in the podcast, I think, at the end for people to access that. But what we do as a company and as coaches and facilitators is we actually go to programs, to schools, and we have parent meetings to where we can encourage and kind of answer questions like this with parents and facilitate those kind of ongoing conversations, because let's be honest, it does need to be ongoing, right? It's not just a one and done type thing. And so you're bringing so many different people collectively into an organization or into youth sports. And I think it is relative to have these types of conversations. And so there are always options like that to seek an outside resource to be able to come in and facilitate questions or workshops like that, okay? And then as far as student athletes go, we have a workbook, and it's the 7 fundamentals of mental toughness. And we take student athletes through and teams through this workbook, and it's very hands-on, and it's phenomenal. It is amazing. We've worked with Seattle Sounders. We have worked we've worked with professional teams all over the place. We've worked with Air Force. I mean, this company that I'm a part of, we get to do great things like that. And so that's one area, and that's one option. That's one thing. I also do think, as far as additional resources go, this podcast, being able to, with BYS, reaching out and finding individuals, and where parents understand that there's always room for improvement, and how, I believe that people have gifts, and there are certain people who have a gift of being able to be a voice within a community. And I think that those people who have those leadership styles and those leadership gifts have an opportunity to be able to create situations like this and to create community like this. And community is so powerful, and it's something that will allow people to feel more secure in their decision makings, right? Because I always tell my kids that I'm already saving money for them to go to therapy, because we are fallible, right? We make mistakes as parents. We are constantly learning. There is no book. There's no magic book for us to look at. So first of all, I just want to acknowledge all the parents out there who are listening. You are doing an amazing job. You are doing an amazing job. And your kids are watching, okay? And they're learning and they're feeling. Children feel the energy, and they feel if mom or dad or a parent figure or, a caregiver is off. So let's do our due diligence to do our inner work. So then that way we can make this generation better than what we went through and what we experienced. And so that's the licensed therapist talking. And then the sports psychology aspect of the community of finding resources for I think that is also a wonderful option. This is more of a difficult question to be able to answer. Is there something else that I'm missing? I don't really know. I'll be the first to say it when I don't know something. I don't know.
No, I think at the end of the day, it starts and ends with parents. So I think
in the
that's,
home,
and that's what we touched on. And then, maybe just to finish up, for all of the thousands of parents, I'm sure, who are listening to this.
Yes.
What are, and I know you probably touched on some of this, but if there's one key takeaway of being a sports parent, what should we is there a mantra? Is there a kind of something that we can remember when, we want to yell at the refs, or when we want to talk to the kids about it, or if we want to push them to go outside and shoot hoops or whatever it is? But what is there something that, that we can kind of helps us put into that perspective that we can take with us, so to speak?
A couple things. I think self-control as a parent, as far as wanting to yell at the ref, let's be honest, does that really work? And is that really something we want to model? Do we want to, I understand squeaky wheel gets the oil, and that is relevant in certain situations. I don't think that's relevant in sport. If we're talking about playing time, or we're talking about a situation that's going on within the dynamic of the team, and it's affecting the team as a whole, then I do think it is appropriate to have that individual, depending on the age, approach the coach and have a conversation, one-on-one. I think that is a very important skill that we as parents can help our kids with. I think around the right age to do that is around, I'd say 11, 12, 13, to where we stay out of it and we encourage our kids kid to have that conversation, and it's up to them if they choose to or not. And then again, they're also learning consequences. That if they do have that, whoa, that worked out. I'm so glad I did that. I was nervous and I did it anyway. Or I'm not going to say anything. Okay, well then you can't expect anything to change, right? That's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And so there's that, and there's also, as far as mantras go, fixed mindset versus the fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So a fixed mindset tells us, nope, this is what I'm doing. This makes me comfortable. I don't want to grow. I'm just going to just stay in this one position. I'm not going to try a different team. I'm just going to keep doing the same thing. Fixed mindset from psychology teaches us that actually, as far as our experiences go, we're not really learning a lot of new experiences because we're closed off to learned experiences. So we're staying stuck, essentially, which means we're getting worse. Not just in sport, in life in general. The brain wants new things. It was created over 2,000 years ago, okay? And it is fixed on survival. And that's what has allowed us to evolve, is we are, our brain is hardwired for negativity. So as parents, when as far as something to remind ourselves of, it's important to consider CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and there's a triangle that we teach our clients. Our thoughts make us lead a certain thought, whether it's positive or negative, makes us feel a certain way. And then when we feel a certain way, it makes us act a certain way or have a certain behavior. And then when we act a certain way or have that behavior, it leads to another thought. And then the cycle keeps going and going, and that's kind of where the downward spiral comes from. And so we can use it for positive or we can use it for negative. So we can have a negative thought and then catch ourselves in that loop and then change it with a positive one. If we're making so many mistakes and we're just like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm awful, I am so bad, why do I even play this sport? Okay, maybe I'm just having an off moment, because it's all moments, it's not a whole day, it's moments, right? I just had an off moment. Let's get back into it. And it's switching that and just switching the mindset. And so that's the positive and negative. So as parents on the sideline, and you're wanting to say negative things, you need to understand the responsibility that comes with that, is that you're also going to affect everyone else around you. And there are numerous studies that have been done on that, on how one negative person can affect everyone around them. So don't be that negative parent. You know, easier said than done, right? But you know, in all honesty, there's that responsibility as parents that we have, and then also the mantra fact, have it be fun. Each family create a mantra for themselves, right? Have the parents initiate the conversation and have the mantra to where it's like, the three things I can control is my attitude, my effort, and my energy. Those are the three things I can control. And it's the same thing for parents. So you can create a mantra around that. Like, today I am going to focus on 100% of my best effort and my sportsmanship, you know, and talking about those things. And so you can do mantras in that way. But yeah, the fixed mindset versus growth mindset, the mantras are super powerful. I will not surrender. I mean, the mantra could be anything, right? And write it in your room, write it on, you know, your mirror with the expo markers that you can erase. That's what I teach my athletes. And so that's something, and I think overall understanding that as parents, our kids are going to come and go, and we want to create the best experiences for them. And if sports isn't doing that, that's okay. They can get that in something else. Yep. They really can. Yep. Or they can go to rec, right? Gosh, like, there's rec sports. Like, you don't have to be the best at everything, right? So that's my answer, I think, to sum it up for you.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
What we say, and I think this actually came from a coach or a team, but what I try to say every time after I watch my kids is, I love watching you play.
That's
and
perfect.
Most of the time I leave it at that, but just like, whether they lost, whether they played great, whether they played, I loved watching you play. And it's true, right? Like, I love watching them play. And
why else
at the end of the day,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we do it because we love it. We don't do this because we have to. And if that is what parents are starting to feel, their kids are starting to feel that too. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you both, Sarah and Shayla, for allowing us to be a part of your conversation today. Thank you all who have joined us. We hope that this conversation proves to be of benefit to you in your parenting. We leave you with the foundation that healthy youth begin with healthy families, and healthy families create healthy communities. BYS is a nonprofit organization that is supported by community members like you. For more information, please visit AskBYS.org. We thank Milagro Castilleja for producing our show. Another big thanks to Barn, the Bainbridge Artisan Resource Network, for their generosity in allowing us to record in their media arts studio.
For more information on Shayla's work as a high-performance coach, please visit astacademy.com.